Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Hump with Katie. I'm your host, Katie Thiroux, and I have got a killing episode for you today with the bassist Carlos Henriquez. If you're new to The Hump, this is a series where I interview some of the world's greatest artists and musicians and kind of find out why are they so amazing and how did it happen, what was their journey, and what can we learn from them. We've already had some fantastic guests like Christian McBride, Larry Grenadier, Rufus Reid, Justin Coughlin, and so much more. You can find all those episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and you can actually see them on YouTube. So go like, subscribe, write a comment, write a review. Hey, let me know who you want to hear from next. Before I bring Carlos on the show, I'd love to thank our sponsors. And first up, we've got Jams World. I'm wearing my Jams World right now, of course. I'm embarrassed to tell you how many I have, but Jams World is an awesome clothing company in Honolulu, Hawaii, and they're giving our listeners a 15% online discount. And I love the clothing because it really keeps me cool and comfortable because the fabric's made from 100% spun crushed rayon, and it's real art screen printed right onto the fabric. It's really cool. If you go to jamsworld.com and use the promo code JAZZ15, you'll get 15% off your entire online purchase. That's jamsworld.com. The next sponsor I'd like to thank is Kolstein's. You guys, I absolutely love Kolstein's String Shop. It's amazing. They have 2 awesome locations in Long Island and a fantastic online website, and they're offering our listeners a 10% online discount. Go to kolstein.com and use the promo code Katie10, and you'll get 10% off your entire online purchase, or give them a call and they'll give you the discount as well. That's kolstein.com. Okay, I'm going to stop talking, finally, and bring you our guest today, the bassist, monster bassist, Carlos Henriquez. And this was such a fun conversation. I had never met him before, but of course I've seen him. You've seen him. You've heard him. He's been at the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra for almost 20 years, which is incredible to keep a position in the jazz world for that long. He's super nice, just an amazing bass player and arranger and composer. And we talked about all sorts of things about growing up in the Bronx and to playing with Wynton Marsalis when he was still in high school. So without further ado, here's Carlos Henriquez.
I've been checking out your videos.
Oh dear.
Yeah, they're good. I can't even open my mouth when I play, like trying to sing the triads and stuff. I should record myself and send it to you. So I can't even talk when I'm playing. So
I cannot talk when I'm playing. And I actually, I always try and practice it, on a gig. Like I love to do it at the end, playing over a blues or something. But geez, I can't get that together.
That's hard. It's like I go into convulsion every time I even try to say something, Every time I'm a musical director and I give cues, I can't even get it out. I'm like, it's so hard.
I think people don't understand that about bass players too. And I want to talk about being a musical director because I think it's such a bass. I don't think people realize how many bass players are musical directors. And I have a couple of reasons why I think so. But yeah, when you're playing bass and you're trying to, you're obviously amazing and you've got everything going on, but then you're kind of like, let me lay this down and then also tell everybody what to do.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I mean, when I think about that as being, I love baseball, so I think about it like being a catcher.
Mm-hmm.
Catcher could kind of see the whole diamond and see the whole game, and the catcher's always talking to the coach.
Yeah.
So, I kind of see it. Bass players could really see the game perfectly on stage, and we have that stereo mix. We got the piano on our right, drums on our left. We kind of have the best world of sound.
That's a great analogy. I love baseball as well. I mean, I could ask what your team is. I don't want to get into a whole heated discussion, but the best catchers, the ones that I look up to, they have a good relationship with the umpire as well. Trying to make sure that they're set up. Okay, that's where you're seeing it.
Yep, and then they set it up. Same thing for us bass players. I mean, there are many great musical directors as bass players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I know.
Jazz. I mean, we can go into the pop world too and go into that. But let's see, in jazz, I mean, I know Ray Brown did a lot of musical directing.
Yeah.
Christian McBride is a great musical director. Let me see who else. I know John Clayton, also great musical director.
Yeah, it's kind of insane. And I agree with you too. It's like, because usually the bass is, more in the back, but in that triangle of, I hear the rhythm section.
Yeah.
Especially in a big band, I'm usually close to the trumpets and I can hear everything going out. Good. Well, I'm glad we agree on something, Carlos.
Yeah, it's a good world. I mean, us bass players, we kind of get the best sonic sound. Nobody can get that sound. I mean,
yeah.
Even if it sounds bad, we're still gonna make it. It's still gonna sound good in our ears.
Well, in the interest of peace, let me just ask, what is your baseball team?
Oh, well, I'm from the Bronx, so I'm a Yankee fan.
Oh, okay.
I was a Mets fan early 80s.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, when the Dream Team, when they had,
Yeah.
Gary Carter, Darryl Strawberry. I mean, that was a great team. But then once they all left, I was stuck with the Yankees. When the Yankees started getting like all these Latinos, I was freaking out. I was loving it. Bernie got in there,
Yeah.
all these cats. I was like, okay, this is gonna be hip. And I got into loving, that team. Plus, I live near the stadium, so.
Yeah. Let's go. I won't tell you my team then. Let's just move on.
Where you at? You a Boston fan?
No, I'm from Los Angeles.
Okay, so yeah, LA. What is it? The LA. Well, it was the LA Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the LA Dodgers are killing, but they were one over on the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Brooklyn Dodgers. Yeah.
Well, cool, Carlos. Thank you so much for taking the time. Sometimes I ask people right off the bat if the phrase "the hump" means something to you.
Yeah. Well, for bass players, it means a lot. There are many terms, right, to define it, but we talk about hump day during the week. I think
Yeah.
it's Wednesday, right, something like that, where it starts. It's a meaning of work. I think when you hear the word hump, bass, also sound. I think I compared the word hump with the sound of the bass,
Yeah.
and it's more of a work ethic. I think for us bass players, the trials and tribulations that we deal with on stage. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the physicality of it,
Mm-hmm.
and then not that, then you have to deal with the harmonic structure of it. Sometimes we bass players can hear so much, but we're so stuck into feeding the world the very simplest form of sound so that they know where they're at. But in reality, our heads are like spinning in different options and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of a tough. It's like a glorifying position, but at the same time, it's a brutal task.
I love that. That's awesome. So if you don't mind, I'd like to start kind of at the beginning. Well, maybe sprinkle back and forth, but you grew up in the Bronx. I know
Yeah,
you just said that.
Grew up in there.
Was music a part of your life from the very beginning?
Yeah, it was. My dad was a trombone player. My mom was a dancer. So it was constant music flowing through the house. My brother picked up dancing along the way as I was learning how to become a musician. And I went to church early in my childhood. I was Pentecostal, and that helped. In the sense of learning, the instrument. I played
Mm-hmm.
guitar. I started on classical guitar. That was my main instrument
Mm.
all the way up till high school.
Wow.
And I was kind of like a backhand bass player because at church, the bass players, if they didn't show up, at least the guitar players could figure it out.
Yeah.
So I would do that. And what really sparked my bass love was in my junior high school in the South Bronx, IS 139. There were many great musicians that were actually working for the Board of Education.
Mm.
So at the time, there was a program called the South Bronx Community Action Theater. And in that program, there was a gentleman by the name of, what's his name? Victor Venegas. And Victor was from Chicago and played on many of the Kyle Jader recordings and
Mm-hmm.
Wombo recording. And he was working there, a part of an organization called Los Cumbancheros. So these were just little shell organizations that would come to these schools and work with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know who this person was. And as I grew learning, with these cats and stuff, I figured out that this guy was actually famous. But he ended up at the Board of Education. So I started loving bass that way, and I started learning my roots, and then that's how I started learning, you know, classical bass and
Mm.
stuff. He recommended me to study with John Schaefer, was a great New York Philharmonic bassist in the 40s and 50s and 60s, of course. And I slowly started loving the bass, and I started meeting people, and one thing led to another. It was crazy. As I was studying Juilliard classical guitar, I would run into Wynton walking, and I was say hi to him, and I would attend his Jazz for Young People show,
Mm-hmm.
with my mom. And then I got kind of started liking, I was like, man, I like what these cats are doing. I think at the time Reginald Veal was playing, and it was very you know, it was entertaining to see,
Mm-hmm.
the bass and to see what they were doing. He was playing with the bow. I think that he was singing along. He was trying. I think that this one episode was about Slam Stewart, or it was about that era,
Yeah.
Major Holly and Slam Stewart. So it was really, I was like in awe. I was like, wow, you could do this.
Yeah.
So I really fell in love with it. And remember, I'm coming from a Latin background too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already at a certain age before high school. I was already playing Latin music, but in my head I was like, man, I would like to see if I could play jazz.
Well, and at that time too, are you listening to other styles of music? I mean, because you're a kid.
Well, yeah, I mean everything is all over the place. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, everything's all over the place. I mean, I'm listening to Katie Lang.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the Bee Gees. Like I was into that. And if I'm not, let me see, there was some doo-wop station still.
Mm-hmm.
He played in the radio stations, so I would just catch it, and I would like those early doo-wops. I used to love Smokey Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Some Motown. I mean, it was eclectic. We had that's the one thing about being in the Bronx and being Puerto Rican is that we love so much music. That we didn't have one style of music. I mean, we would
Yeah.
be to Louis Johnson. We were the Johnson Brothers. I remember my mom had a record from the Johnson Brothers, and then the next record would be like Julio Iglesias,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be the Menudos, and then it would be the Bee Gees, and then it would be Paul McCartney, then it would be a Coltrane. Like, it was unbelievable the amount of music that we had. And you start learning, you start
Yeah.
figuring stuff out. You're like, oh man, this is hip. And at the same time, you're hearing the bass.
Yeah.
You got electric bass, you got basses with flat wounds, you got acoustic basses, you got basses, it's 1970s sound basses. Like, you start understanding what these sounds that you were listening as a kid
Mm.
come to fruition. You're like, oh man, now I understand what's happening.
Yeah, that's great. And so bass, it was an easy transition for you from guitar.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's crazy. I just got my kid for Christmas a classical guitar, and I haven't touched one in years. And I was always afraid, just because of the neck of the bass, and I got so drilled with this, the hand position and all this stuff, that I was afraid that once I started playing guitar, it would kind of go away or feel funny.
Mm-hmm.
But the transition was there. I mean, it was the musical transition was there.
Okay.
Physicality, I had to work on it. But
Were you kind of, I know you were kind of drawn to the bass. Were you excited to practice? Was that fun for you?
yeah, oh yeah, I was always practicing, and it was always drilled in my head. You got to practice,
Yeah.
to be, to get better. It wasn't always like you got to practice to be famous or anything.
Yeah.
It was more like muscle memory. It's like, man, you got to do it. The intonation. You're sliding up and down the fingerboard. You got to figure it out. You got to learn. Look at your fingerboards. Try to have a picture memory of where the notes are at.
Mm-hmm.
See,
And
it was,
did I
yeah.
read this correctly? You went to LaGuardia?
I went to LaGuardia High School, yeah, and I got into the school on classical guitar. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get into bass, and at the time they weren't teaching classical guitar in the high school, so they had asked me what instrument you want to pick up. I said I play bass. Fine, piece of cake.
Yeah.
I was already playing bass, and I think my first year of high school I really got serious with playing the bass.
I bet it probably helped having other kids your age too that were, I assume they were serious. I know that's a great school.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, yeah, believe it or not, one of the kids that were with me, uh, yeah, David, he's in the where is he? St. Louis Orchestra,
Mm.
St. Louis. Oh yeah, and it's yeah, there were many great musicians that were there. You know.
And at the same time, I love that. So you had this kind of like extracurricular program that you, from junior high.
Oh yeah, that worked out.
So that's great. And like, um, does it also help seeing people who look like you playing music as opposed to
Yeah,
like maybe what we see just on TV or somewhere?
yeah. Well, that's a great, that's a good question. As a young kid, it didn't, I didn't think much. I was just, very interested in the music. Um, the older I got, the more I started understanding how things were being put into places.
Hmm.
I understood, there weren't that many Latinos playing jazz.
Yeah.
I mean, we had Eddie Gomez, in terms of rhythm section.
Yeah.
Eddie Gomez, Willie Bobo. I'm trying to think who else that were really like playing in the jazz scene. And it was interesting. I was like, damn, okay, maybe I could become another cat in that era. As a kid, it didn't strike me at all.
Mm-hmm.
As I got older and started doing research, I started finding out how much of my heritage was really involved in jazz,
Mm.
and how much influence we kind of gave, the jazz world in America. And I was really proud of it, knowing the Juan Tizals,
Yeah.
stuff like that, but just being in the rhythm section, because I feel the rhythm section defies the cultural value of music, like the actual rhythm of music. It's a very stamp of the culture of what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always said, if you could really be a part of a rhythm section, then you're really a part of that culture, because that's the core root of what's going on. And I really got interested into doing research and learning that about all these great Latinos and people from Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico,
Mm-hmm.
Creoles, the Creoles that were thought to be African Americans, who were actually French descent, or they were either mulatto colors
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So it was later in my life, Katie, that I started being more aware of this. As a kid, it didn't really, I was
Yeah,
a
you're
bit
just having fun. You're playing music.
having fun. Oh yeah, I'm having so much fun, and I remember as a kid checking out Christian McBride. When he was like the first kid in New York City. I was like, wow, this is bad. I was like
Yeah.
unbelievably struck. John Benitez, when he first came to New York, I was like, this is unbelievable. So as a kid, it didn't really phase me. And I was lucky enough to have been a part of these jazz programs once we hit high school. I got to work with Justin DeChocho,
Mm-hmm.
great advocate for education in jazz, but he's a good cat, and the way he brings out the joy of jazz was really uh, influential in us, young.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Stewart, great tuba player, was also a part of my education in jazz, and we learned so much. And being a part of a rhythm section is really it's a very important role, because there's so much that's demanded by us. Not just knowing songs, right?
Yeah.
That's one way of saying, oh, so many songs, but there's also that of knowing the tradition, knowing the historical values, the sounds of that culture, what defies
Mm-hmm.
that, and I think, you know, now, you start looking back, and you start, you put the building blocks in their
Mm-hmm.
places and understand what, where things are actually falling into.
Well, and that's the cool thing when you're a kid and you're not actively paying attention, but that part of your brain is. And so all that music you absorbed as a kid from your mom, someone
Yeah.
might say, can you play it like this? And they can't really describe it, but in the back of your head, you're like, well, let me go for that Motown or that Bee Gees sound or something, because I heard it and now I can figure out what it is.
Yep. Yeah, you store all that information, and it's that's the beautiful thing about being young, It's like when you get older, and I don't want to stereotype it, but you start, I guess people start like labeling things, well, this is this is that, this is this. But you keep forgetting when you were a kid, we stored all that information in our head, and we just associated sound and try to compare it, we
Hmm.
try to connect the dots. We weren't really thinking about, oh, that's Motown. No, just, I can't,
Yeah.
Jameson doesn't work here. We weren't really talking about that. It's just sound.
Hmm.
And I think that's a very important part of our developing characters as a musician. And I think we should always nurture that, even at an elder age,
Yeah.
because that, it gives that fun aspect to it, and it basically integrates a lot of stuff, rather than segregate. Because I understand people have like, well, this was my music, or I was there when I wrote that, or
Yeah.
it's cool to have that vibe, but at the end of the day, this music is about inclusive,
Yeah. And enjoying it. It's like,
joining and being together.
you can listen to even now, like, a record and, judge it, make any sort of judgment, even whether it's good or bad to you. But sometimes it's just, I just want to listen to this,
Yeah.
I don't care.
No, you're right. That's the way to do it.
So, was it at the same time at LaGuardia you were also a part of the Juilliard I forget what it's called, like the advancement program.
Yeah, the advancement program. So let me see. Yeah, it was towards my sophomore year. Well, so my freshman year in high school, I decided to switch over to bass at the Juilliard Music Advancement Program, and they allowed me to do it,
Hmm.
which was great. And I studied with this great bassist named Melanie Punter, great bass player
Hmm.
who I think now she's in Florida. And she helped me. She got me into the pre-college department at
Mm.
Juilliard for a little bit. But then what was happening is I was getting calls to do gigs. I was working. I had just met Wynton. Wynton started hiring me to do these fundraisers with him. That's how Wynton got the younger kids to play with him.
Hmm.
He would call them to do fundraisers. And I was doing so many of these fundraisers, so I would miss one Saturday. Oh, they got
Yeah.
me. I missed one lesson. Oh, what's going on? So then Julia was like, "Hey, man, we're gonna have to talk." So I had to make a decision. So then after a while, it's like, I'm here with Wynton. This is what I really want to do. I like this music, and Wynton has, he was giving me the opportunity to sub for Rodney Whitaker for
Hmm.
Reggie Field. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go this route.
Hmm.
I chose right. I wanted to go, and I was already studying with John Schaefer.
Hmm.
So my classical proficiency levels were getting better, and I was passing, and studying. So, I wasn't really worried about that. And and after seeing I was really wanting to get into the Philharmonic. Believe it or not, I
Mm.
was really into that because of John Schaefer, my teacher. I liked the culture. I liked the whole traditional aspect of it. But then after a while, I was like, damn, okay. Once you pass your test, you're in this sucker for years. You get
Yeah.
10, that's it, and you just basically you in there. You can't really create. You got
Yeah.
to continue playing the legacy of that traditional, composer's, tradition, which is not a problem. But in my world, it wasn't. I didn't want to do that.
Hmm.
I want to be able to play Bottesini and then play a blues.
Yeah.
Play a Ray Brown excerpt, and then play Cachao, play Andy Gonzalez. Then go back to playing Voss Miniature, Ghost of Whiskey. Then go
Yeah.
back. You know, I want to be able to do that. You know.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And at that same time, when you're in high school and you're getting to play with Wynton and these amazing opportunities and playing around town, I'm just guessing, but you're seeing music as well in town.
Oh man, yeah, you've seen everything. Yeah, I mean, I'm hanging out. I'm trying to get to the jam sessions. I'm checking out gigs. Checking out people playing, and it's a different world. And at the same time, you're trying to absorb all this information.
Hmm.
You're downloading. You're basically the fastest processor, and you're trying to solid
Yeah.
state hard drive. And you're trying to get all that stuff in there, and you're at the same time you're trying to understand why things are happening. And
Hmm.
that's the biggest challenge for a young musician. It's not so much retaining the information, it's understanding why you have that information and how to use it.
Hmm.
And you can't cheat that. That's just with years of study and up and downs. You'll figure out how to manage that stuff.
So yeah, I so much of it too. I mean, you don't have to see to experience it. You can just sit and listen somewhere, but a lot of it is just kind of watching the the whole atmosphere of what's going on and just okay.
Play by play, how they working it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's never going to work out the same way every single
It
time.
never repeats itself, which is kind of out. And you can go on stage and try to repeat a scenario, but it don't. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah, like everybody plays like when Paul Chambers plays that high F on "Someday My
So
Prince Will
yeah.
Come." I've always tried to do that like on any waltz,
Yeah.
and you bing 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 bing, and people look at you and they don't follow you as the record.
Yeah.
They don't do the thing with the symbol. It doesn't work that way. So, you know, it's just you start. Those are the things you learn as a young child. As a
Hmm.
kid, you start saying, okay, yeah, you can regurgitate it, but that's gone. It's already been done.
Hmm.
You could only analyze the situation and create something new based on those facts.
Yeah, exactly. And was your family supportive of you at that time? Going
Yeah,
out.
yeah, they were supportive. My mom really gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to hang out with these great musicians. I mean, I was hanging out with Andy Gonzalez, Mario Bauza, Batato, great Cuban percussionist. I mean, I would leave the house at 7 p.m. and come back at 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 13. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't let my kids to do that with nobody. So
Yeah.
let alone my mom did that to, she let me do that. But I think my mom had a vision, a much bigger vision of what, I was able to get and to understand. And it was great. I mean, I saw so much music. I met so many great musicians. And, I was young. I didn't know the historical values of these cats,
Mm-hmm.
but I knew that they had that giving, that love of
Yeah.
information. They treated me well, man. And it was always like I was their second child. And,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was great.
Is there any like standout performance as that young kid
Yeah.
that's really stood out to you?
Well, I mean, the ones that always stand out is the ones that they make you play. You
Yeah.
know, so I would always sit on a stool next to like Andy Gonzalez when he would play with Conjunto Libre or Fort Apache, and sometimes he'd be like, "Hey, you know this next song?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, I know it." And he'll give me the bass and walk off stage, and I'll be like, "Oh, damn,
Yeah.
this is it," But once you on it, once you on that track, you jump on that train and that's it, and you just you swinging down with them, and then it's very uplifting when they start praising you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
man, you sound great. Wow, it's like because you're young, you're like, oh man, well, then your ego start boosting, and
Yeah.
it helps you motivate, and the motivation helps, and it creates more of the atmosphere for you to start looking for more information and
Yeah.
better.
And learning in that moment too, because you're probably okay. The percussionist, the drummer, the piano player, they're doing what I'm doing is working or it's not working. It doesn't feel good or it feels good, and trying to figure that out in the moment, how to fix it.
Oh, yeah, you definitely trying to work that out, and and it's spinning super fast.
Yeah.
Everything's going by fast. But those are the moments, Katie. I love. Those are the ones that I really cherish as much as I can. The moments of being on stage, the butterflies. The
Mm-hmm.
tremor, all the scare. Like you're sweating, and it's those are the ones that you gotta keep those. Those are the ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how much of a tradition that is anymore. Even when I grew up in LA, you'd go to somebody's gig and you like I couldn't I had to play. Like I couldn't just go. They'd be like, "Okay, you have to play." Even though it's their gig, it was always like some rite of passage. I was like,
Yeah.
I just want to, I want to
Yeah.
listen. I want to
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
But and then they call a song that I don't know, or maybe I've heard a couple times, and you just figure it out, and then now you know it, and then you learn it. But yeah, I love that tradition. Just totally off guard, and let me just make it happen.
Yeah, that's a true jazz musician. That's like you said, off guard and making it happen. It's truly what we do in life. And if you come to the game knowing the stuff is cool, but a true jazz musician is one who 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 can create art around something he doesn't know, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day figure it out and know the schematics from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. That's well put.
Right there.
So you graduated high school from LaGuardia, and then you were on your path. You just went right to playing with Wynton full
Yeah,
time, right?
I went straight. Well, yeah. So, and let me see. He called me at 18. Well, I was turning 18, which is out. I was 17 when I got the call to play with the band for about a year and a half.
And this is with the septet.
No, I was already. I was once I started working with Winton. He figured it was easier just for me to do all the different configurations.
Mm-hmm.
But I was mainly subbing for Ronnie Whitaker. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. I took the gig in the beginning. No, I was there from '98 to like the middle of '99, like a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and it was I mean it was a perfect time, and I don't know if it was done by design, but I think it was like it had to do with like the Latin tinge of jazz was
Okay.
was that year. So it worked out. They used me. They use all the Latin influences that I helped them with, and we traveled the world. And then I think Ronnie Whitaker had left to go to Michigan and work on his degree because he wanted to become director, so he had to do certain things. And he once he came back, of course I had to leave, but a year and a half, and
Mm-hmm.
then I was I was also attending the new school while this was happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I had asked Terry Lucas and I think Reggie Workman if Wynton could become my independent studies
Mm-hmm.
teacher. It's a piece of cake. So they allowed it, and I started to create. Like you start to build up these credits. Unfortunately, I couldn't graduate the new school because I was working.
Yeah.
And that's what I really wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to work. I wanted to be a jazz musician, work and travel and play with all these
Yeah.
people. So I had done that first, but during that time, that's what was going on. And then after I left Wynton's orchestra because Rodney Whitaker was coming back, I went straight to Danilo Pérez's trio,
Mm.
and then I did about a year and a half there. Recorded Motherland with him. That's when Antonio was there, Antonio Sanchez and I. And then once we dealt with that trio, then I left and went with Gonzalo Rubalcaba's trio, which is a whole nother
Yeah.
world. That was like being on a rocket ship.
Yeah.
When I got to working with Danilo was great because Danilo had perfect pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was easy for him. So for me, I don't have perfect pitch. So I have very good relative pitch, but still, there were things he would do that I was like, shit. I was like, this could be either this chord or this could be two songs. Which one is it? And I would have to really work hard to understand. You start working on your ears. He was teaching me all these tricks on building my ears. The whole trick with the pencil and the piano, like hit a one note and just close your eyes and start playing notes
Mm-hmm.
and figure out what the relationships are. So he really helped me. And when I got to Gonzalo, then I started understanding what really rhythm is. Because, man, this guy, Gonzalo, would write something and you would think it's something. And when you look at the paper, it's like it's some other thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, that was kind of my trajectory after leaving Wynton and then coming back to Wynton. So it was like Wynton, the trios, right? So it was like Eric Reed's trio for a little bit, Danilo Pérez's trio, Gonzalo Rubalcaba's trio, and then boom, right back to Wynton.
You probably came back to change man.
Oh yeah, definitely. What? Definitely. Musically, I mean, just the sound.
Yeah.
Everything. I mean, everything changed.
And how great it is to be in with leaders who are receptive and want to help you, right? Some people they don't want to give it away because maybe they can't explain it themselves or that's just not them. But it's nice when you can work with somebody who's willing to work with you because they want you to be better and they want the music to be at a certain level.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what makes it makes leaders great. That's what makes the leaders great. It's handing off the keys to the Cadillac. Because when somebody else is successful, you're more successful because you see that you could see that in somebody, and then that other person becomes successful, and he does the same. Then the trees, the branches start opening, and then everybody's successful.
Yeah.
Until this day, I've always thanked Wynton. I'm at an older. I mean, I'm 41, so it's great now to mess with Wynton because we're at an older. I mean, elder age where we could mess with each other. I could curse at him. We could fight. We could scream at each other. It's all with love, But it's great now that we're at a certain point in our lives. But I've always thanked him. I mean, he's done so much for me and so many other musicians, and even to this day, I mean, there's so many great bass players out there. Philip Norris. Mm-hmm. You got Russell Halls, the Paul Sakivis. There's so many great bass players. Coming up, and we try. He does the same thing. He tries to help as much as they can. And Dear Owens, call him for gigs.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always spoken about it. I'm like, man, call him up like you used to do with me. Call him up to fundraisers. Call him up to do those one hitters.
Mm-hmm.
If not, we're not going to be able to recite. This
exactly. You got to make room.
You got to make room.
Yeah, and people rise to the occasion.
Yeah, when you put them in those positions. Yeah. And during this pandemic, it's very obvious. There were the concerts at Dizzy's were being streamed. And at a certain point, they were calling us. Yo guys, you want to do the gig? And I'm like, no. I was like, man, crazy? No, call so and so. Call so and so. Call. Make sure you call them. You know why? Well, because first they need work. Second of all, they're not. You know, they don't have the platform that we're in, and we're. You know, we need to spread it to them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever we can give, we got to just spread it out. So
Yeah.
then they started doing that, and man, it's great to see all these other great musicians. You know,
Mm-hmm.
be a part of the family.
Yeah. What was the transition for you going on the road for the first time? What kind of adjustment was that for you?
Well, well, you want to know when the first time I went on the road, or you want to know when just going on the road?
I guess yeah, like even your first experience.
Well, my first experience, it was great. I flew from JFK to Colorado. It was with a salsa band called Johnny and Ray, and I must have been 16, I
Mm.
think, and I took the train to JFK. I had a baby bass, so the bass that you see here,
Mm-hmm.
I uh, I took it apart, and I didn't have a case for it, so I took it on like carry on, and
Yeah.
put it on top. They didn't bother us then,
Yeah.
but it was weird. It was interesting. That was kind of my first trip, and then I kind of enjoyed it. Plus, I had people that looked after me. Of course, in the band. But we were rooming. It was 2-to-1 room at the time. I
Yeah.
was like, damn, this is what it's like. I don't understand this. But then you start understanding how fun it could be. But then after that, then I started traveling a lot more, and yeah, it took a minute to kind of adjust of life. Trying to you know
Yeah.
thing about being a jazz musician is that you travel and you'll get the 5 stars
Yeah.
and you'll get the 2 stars, and your job is not, you have to perform and be the best that you can in those scenarios. And I think that was the main adjustment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Wynton, like, man, we would be flying in a private jet and then doing a 13-hour trip in a van.
Yeah.
I'd be like, bro, we just flew a private jet. Why are we doing a 13-hour? It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Or we would have like a 5-star hotel for one week, and then the next week it'd be like a 3-star. I said, bro, what's going on? So it was hard sometimes for me to get. I used to always come. Man, I'm a hotel freak. Like, I'd be like, no, man, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I was like, why? Why? We just stood at the Mandarin,
Yeah.
and how are we gonna stay at so and so? What you doing, man? So I think that was one of the big adjustments that I had to learn, is that not everything was gonna be the same,
Mm-hmm.
and not every promoter or every location had the resources,
Yeah.
to pay, what, and Wynton, being who he was, um, he offered himself to these different, presenters, based on what they could offer.
Yeah.
So you start learning. It's like, it's not always about what you can make. It's also, it's always, it's not only about that. It's
Yeah.
more than that. How you could give your music and be a part of a society, rather than just be a part of a substance issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Your impact.
Yeah.
I just worry. My thing is like the breakfast at the hotel, right?
No, you're right. You see, everybody has. Yeah, I know. I'm with you. You want to walk down. You want to be like, man, look at this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You smell like, wow. You got an assortment. It's like a buffet that's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know exactly.
And I'm not ashamed to say I travel with my Nespresso machine because
There you go.
coffee's a big deal for me.
Dan Nimmer does the same. Paul Netzella does the same. And
Yeah.
I'll
And
bet-
who's knocking on my door asking for coffee? Everybody else in the band.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of cats in the band that do that.
Mm-hmm. Got to have the European plug though. That's the
Oh
key.
yeah, I know. No, that's cool that you do that. That's happening.
And
I'm
my hot water kettle too. If I want tea, most hotels they'll have that, but
You don't want to be put in that position of not having it. I know.
exactly. I don't want to be caught off guard like I am on the bandstand.
I'm with you. No, you got to have all your stuff, man. I'm with
Yeah.
you. That's killing.
So you've been in the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra for how long now?
I think I'm clocking 18 years now. So I started out in 2002 was the first time. So if we don't even talk about 98 and 99, right?
Yeah, the lost
2002,
years.
Yeah, those are the baby years. So,
Yeah.
2002 was when I got called to join the orchestra.
Hmm.
And the band, then I remember because we played the year, the 9/11 first year inauguration, not inauguration, but
The
uh,
memorial.
memorial concert at Central Park. And we were there with, it was with Billy Joe. We played New York State of Mind. And we also played, the band played a set. That was my first introduction to the band. So I've been there since 2002. So, we're hitting 19 years now,
Yeah.
18, 19.
Is it like Duke's band where it's you don't get fired. You either die or you leave.
Well, no, I mean you could get fired. Don't get me wrong. We don't, we're not on a tenured track.
Yeah.
We're on a yearly contract, and it's your job basically is just stay afloat with your, just you know, you, it's more like you don't fall asleep on the gig.
Yeah.
Don't you know? I mean, Wynton's he's very loyal to the cast he calls originally, and who he really wants in the band. But you do have the ability to get fired. That I
Hmm.
can tell you. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
not up to par, if you're not doing things that are right, musically or for the organization, or because you represent not only the music, but you also represent Jazz Lincoln Center. So yeah, I mean, there are ways you can get
Yeah.
fired. But it's interesting that you say that. I mean, we slowly now are beginning to open up, like, the seats in the orchestra.
Mm.
So you know, we Jazz Lincoln Center got hit with a lawsuit, because we weren't making, um, the the announcements of anybody leaving
Mm.
publicly. And and I think it was a misunderstanding, or just they didn't know that, when you receive federal money for the institution and stuff
Yeah.
like that, things like this have to be noted, and
Mm.
Winston really took it, to heart, to really make it right. And he dealt with a lot of people, like
Mm.
criticizing him, but at the same time he took that energy and he took that information and really tried to make it right. So for this drum chair, we went crazy. We had, like, I don't know,
I remember that.
200, three
Yeah.
hundred. And then they had different stages, and then at the end we ended up with two. And then we tried different, and then we started throwing, like, curveballs, different scenarios,
Yeah.
see how they dealt with, and at a certain point Wynton wasn't really happy, so he pulled back, so then, I think now he's trying live auditions,
Hmm.
but the one thing I'm saying is that we needed to make it inclusive for everybody,
Hmm.
you know and
Well, I bet no. I mean, there is nothing like jazz at Lincoln Center, like the orchestra, because I don't think there's anything like that. We're used to orchestra positions being open, right? Like, oh, this bass player just left, and they're gonna have an audition in 2 months. So it was. I can understand why it was just like, well, this is how we do it. It's not like Thad Jones, Mel Lewis. Like there was an open call. It was like, no, call this cat,
yeah,
try him out, and if it doesn't work, we'll try somebody else.
yeah, and it's yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of people, felt they had that 50-50, and I was like, man, this is a double-edged sword, because I feel this way, but I also want to respect, this other side of the world, and it was really interesting, because we got hit hard, and it was like, man, it was tough, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I think we came out of it, with a really positive outlook. And I think people, when they saw how much effort, Jazz Lincoln Center put into it, they were really, it was like, man, with all the stuff they
Yeah.
did, they really tried, and it's not, trust me, I mean, Winston wished that there were, like, hundreds of Jazz Lincoln Centers around the world,
Yeah.
because then the amount of work could be generated and people could actually work,
Hmm.
male, female, it would be, white, black, Latino, Chinese, whatever it is, you'll be able to be put in that position. But because we're stuck with one entity, it's always like that, man, it's you could either, you know
You're not going to please everybody. Someone's always going to be
please everybody.
angry. Yeah.
But it's been, I think, from that point, I could tell you that from when that whole thing started to now, it's gotten to a better place because of that.
Hmm.
And I tell people sometimes, it's not negative when you call somebody out.
Yeah.
It's a learning process, and it's also a part of the history of how things are supposed to change. And I'm telling you, from that moment to now, I think Jazz Lincoln Center has gotten to a way better place. I think in that sense.
Hmm. That's great.
Mm.
So when did the arranging and composing come along for you? Because I know, I mean, that's huge for you in the orchestra and then and on your own, and you did I don't want to misname it, but the Cuban suite. It was like a 10 movement suite, right?
We did okay, so it was I started well let me the first answer. So the let me see, 2000, I think it was 2005, 2006. I hope I'm right. Wynton started doing like a nursery rhyme concert.
Hmm.
When it was like, how about we get people in the band to do arrangements, you know? And I was like, I'll do one, I'll do Brahms Lullaby,
Yeah.
you know? And other cats in the band did it. And that was the first initiation of the band doing arrangements. Before that, it wasn't that. Before that, it was always Wynton
Uh-huh.
and maybe Ted Nash, you know, maybe Victor Goins would do one. Nothing very, very. It was always Wynton.
Hmm.
That was the start. I never took any class on.
Yeah.
I didn't know. To this day, I can't read I can't read an what they call it, a transpose
A
score.
score. Yeah.
Takes me out.
Hmm.
Because and I don't have perfect pitch, but I gotta see where the note is. I can't see that a note is different when I know it sounds like this. I can't. Why does it sound? I know the concept, but
Yeah.
I can't see a note that's that when it sounds like this. You can't do that to me, so it kind of drives me nuts. But that's when I started, writing, and
Hmm.
then it was my first arrangement, Brahms Lullaby. So I kind of did it like 6/8, like do do do, like do do ding, do do ding. Do, do, dee, 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 dee. So that was kind of cool. And then my second opportunity to arrange was to do a Thelonious Monk arrangement of Baya.
Oh, cool.
Do, do. And then that was when I really got into it. I said, "Oh, I'm
Hmm.
gonna really like unleash." And then from there on, it was like, okay, this is a new thing. So then everybody in the band started arranging. So we had 11 arrangers.
Mm.
So then we all compete with each other. Every time we did, who did that arrangement? Oh, that was bad. And that's, and we just got, the more you do it, the easier it got, right?
Yeah.
Then the more you do it, the more you see the orchestra on the piano. You just see how the orchestration is. You see how high trumpet, how low, how the blends go. Then you start listening to other arrangers, Maria Schneider, Brooke Myers' vibe, Duke, Mel Lewis's vibe. Thad Jones's vibe. And then you start saying, "Oh, I like this, I like that," and you just take little bits,
Mm.
not all of it, just a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of create your own sound.
Well,
You know,
I think you're being slightly modest because to go from, not really composing and arranging, and then like arranging for a big band, were you studying scores? Was it because you already listened to a lot of music? Was it like you're saying, like I want to do that sound and figuring it out? Like was
well, I
it
think
like a crazy task for you?
I didn't study. I didn't study no score. I didn't. I mean, I looked at some of. No, I didn't. I didn't study score. Let me see. No, I studied ranges. I didn't want to
Mm.
go above or below.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, that's like yo, I'm a size 13. You gave me a size 10. No,
Yeah.
it's you. I think what I did, I had it in my ears. So you play big band music so much that it's already there.
Hmm.
You hear it. So I guess I already knew what it was supposed to sound like. I just didn't know how to translate it on music.
Hmm.
So I the more you did it, the more it just became, because then you start hearing the way Wynton writes,
Yeah.
how the other cats write. Don't get me wrong. The harmony when I started early it was very simple. It was very shell,
Hmm.
3 7 1. Very shell blocks. When you got to Wynton, it was like, you know,
Yeah.
it makes sense when you look at it. I said, bro, it's an E flat minor chord. Why you got A, why you got B natural, C sharp, why you have all this stuff moving in this chord? It's an E flat minor chord, bro. Like it was took me a minute to understand that um 'Cause chord, the sound of harmony wasn't dictated just only by the chord. Like sound harmony moves,
Hmm.
and that chord is there, but it doesn't mean that it has to stay in that chord.
Yeah.
To this day, I get side swiped by it sometimes because sometimes I feel like, man, I have to be true to that chord.
Mm.
No, you don't have to be true to that chord. It's a sound and it moves throughout that chord. So, you know, later I got really involved into that and understanding that. And that was just me on the piano.
Hmm.
Like I would definitely, whoever's watching this video, bass players, get on your piano skills. You don't have to be Scott Joplin,
Hmm.
or Herbie, but you should be able to start, playing chords and see how they work. Because trust
Yeah.
the mystery of the dominant chord in my life has always been crazy because I remember as a kid, like the C7,
Endless possibilities.
yeah, endless possibilities.
Yeah.
The older you get, the more like crazy possibilities you get. Like they should write like C7 and then parentheses, do whatever the hell you want,
Yeah.
because it's gonna fall somewhere. It's gonna lead you to something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, so it's like the diamond is like, yeah, do whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. I know I went to Berklee and there was a teacher there. My husband was in this class
Uh-huh.
and he just wrote C7 on the board
Uh-huh.
and then left. But said, tell me everything you can do with this, and just left. Because it's true. You could do anything.
You could do anything with it. And then once you start understanding that, then you're like, oh, okay. Then when you're arranging, it has the same understanding, because of the possibilities of the 5/1 cadences
Hmm.
always resolving. You start understanding how things are pushed and dragged into that sound that you want to do. Man, but at first it was crazy for me. I was like, an F sharp. Why
Yeah.
C7? Why you got an F sharp? It's supposed to be G. It's like, well, D flat. You out of your mind? It's D naturals. It was crazy, man. It was.
Well, and it's fun to listen, like your music, of course, because you're a bass player. But when you can hear when someone's taken into consideration the bass, because oftentimes, slash chords, maybe a rhythm here and there. But like when someone like Thad Jones, who I'm pretty sure started by writing the bass line, and then building everything on top of it. So like all those, like what you're saying is like, well, it could be E flat 7, but he's writing a natural in there in the bass line because of what is going to be happening on top of it. So it's always nice when you hear music that takes the bass seriously.
Yeah, Bach. It goes back to Bach, right?
Yeah.
God goes Bach to Bach.
Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I just have maybe one or two more questions. I mean, for the nerds out there, your bass setup, like your the strings kind of that you use, are you still using? Well, yeah, just tell me.
Well, I mean, I'm a gut string lover,
Yeah.
life, but I stopped playing gut strings about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I went back to working with. I'm still with Parastros. Those are my family. I went to using the Eva Parazis, the Vikes. But I worked with Parastro to kind of come up with a different diameter gut strings called the quarters, and they did very well.
Mm.
And I use them on and off, not on this bass. I have a couple basses in my house, and I leave one set up. Um, but I use the Eva Perazzi strings, the Vikes, and they give me everything I need, and you could tune them up to solo gauge,
Hmm.
and they just they have a nice feeling under the bow and stuff. So I use my height. I usually keep them at 6 millimeters on the G string.
This is getting really deep.
Yeah, I'll do 6, 7.5 on the D, 8 on the A, and 9.5 or 9 on, depending on the curvature of the fingerboard.
Yeah.
I like beveled fingerboards
Hmm.
versus the round fingerboards because I've always felt that the bevel uh, helped the lower strings sound better, and it's easier to pluck.
Excellent. Thank you. Nerd session over. And you also, are you still teaching at Northwestern?
Yeah, I've been there. I think I've been there for 10 years now, 10, 11 years. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
Victor Lawrence, when he first got that job, he asked me, "Hey, can you join me, man?" Because he didn't know what he was getting into, and he just wanted to be around people he knew.
Hmm.
So I said, "Yeah, I'll do it, man." Fly to Chicago, it was, but it's crazy, I've been doing that for a while now, and the program is, we have a new building, and it's always been a great program. Very smart kids coming in there, and and I love Chicago. I don't like it in the winter, but
Yeah.
all the other,
I
man,
bet Zoom, it's been nice to be on Zoom right now,
what? Yeah, oh yeah,
to
oh
miss
yeah,
that winter.
oh yeah. And how many flights have been canceled? How many lessons I got to guys? I got to reschedule, man. My flight got canceled because of a snowstorm or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been there. I taught at Juilliard for a little bit,
Hmm.
uh, and I did that when Wynton took over. He asked me to do about a year and a half, year and a half. Because our schedule was not that busy, so he figured
Yeah.
I could, do it. But then once it got busy, he had asked me, who else can you get? I recommended Gerald Cannon. I had mentioned a lot. I also mentioned John Patitucci to go. John and I, we studied with John Schaefer,
Oh,
so we were
okay.
both taking lessons with John Schaefer. When John moved from L.A. to New York, we were both studying with him. I got really close with Johnny, with Patitucci. I mean,
Johnny. Yeah.
I love him.
Um, and the last thing I'll mention is you have at least two records as a leader, Bronx Pyramid and Dizzy Conclave.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I like the Dizzy one because to me it's kind of like you're continuing what Dizzy started, right?
yeah. Just adding more fire to it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think that's just an awesome tradition to just keep going with that.
Yeah, yeah. And it was hard. That was a hard album because same thing you said. It's like, damn, Dizzy did a lot to this. What the hell am I gonna do? So I figured, you know what? Some of these songs, let me turn them to song and dance. Like let's
Oh,
turn it like to one of those, the good old, like salsa meets jazz. Like at
hmm.
the Old Village Gate. I figured, let me turn some of these songs into that, and just have some fun with it. Make people dance. At least if you can't understand the harmonic or the bebop, structure of the song, at least when it gets to the end, you'll be dancing or doing something. So I
Yeah,
figured
yeah,
you're gonna love one part of the damn song.
yeah. I love it. Well, you know what? I think that's it. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Really appreciate you, Carlos, coming on. You're just an amazing bass player. It was so much fun to meet you as well.
Yeah,
So,
this is cool.
and I'll put I always put links.
I'm
Oh,
telling you, I'm gonna be able to. But 2021, my bass resolution is to be able to sing a triadic chord while I'm playing bass.
oh, you can do it.
I stutter. I start. You should. I mean, I'm gonna send you a video. It's out. It's like I can't do it. Or I'm gonna tell you one thing. I'll play a good bass line and I'll sing like something totally outside the realm, but it'll be like maybe I do it right. It'll be like
Yeah.
157, but it'll be like in another key. Oh my God, it's
You're
the
just
worst.
ahead of your time. You're just way
Oh
ahead
my
of your
God.
time. It's like Schoenberg or something.
Oh my God, it's out.
Well, thanks, Carlos. This was
All right.
fantastic. Thanks so much. And Happy New Year to you and wishing you all the best in this new year.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.